Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Here we are again, friends, back for episode 120 of the Rewind, if you can believe such a thing. This podcast is your weekly check-in and our 7-day debrief on all things going on in the world of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, the in-development MMORPG by Visionary Realms. We stay on top of all the news, the discussions, and the fan projects to bring you about an hour or so of comprehensive coverage for this promising new MMO. On this week's show, we're going over the massive September 2022 newsletter from VR. We're showing off the latest in community content, and of course, we're learning more lore. So I don't know if you see that light up ahead or if you hear the sounds of Terminus, but if you do, that's because we're nearing the end of a very dark cave that's about to open before our eyes as we take our first steps out onto a new and improved world with so much to behold. So join me, Therek, and my revelation of a co-host, Desrin, for this week's Rewind. So Desrin, I need a small favor. Yeah. I need you to solve time travel, build a time machine, and just jump us 18 hours into the future if you can do that. Do you think you can help me out?
Okay. So, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Amazing. How did you do that? Amazing.
Did it work? I guess we'll see.
It worked. Yeah. I'll tell you at the end of the show whether it worked or not.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Sounds good. How are you doing, Matt? Are you having a good week?
It's fine. It's been a crazy week, I'll be honest. But I like this newsletter. I'm already going to start going crazy because I'm very excited to talk about this newsletter. It's hard to hold
back. I know. Yeah. Me too.
But I'm going to hold back now.
Before we even started recording, you and I are already going into it. We just can't stop. So before we get to that though, let's introduce our crew of time travelers who are joining us this week. We've got Ziplocks on the Darkmer Rogue, Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsasaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archive Summoner, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Acera Avienda on the Elf Ranger, Churro Dude on the Halfling Direlord, and Galarain Moonsong on the Elf Ranger. So as always, very grateful to all you folks and everyone else who supports the Rewind. Wherever this crazy trip ends up taking us, it's good to know all of you are by our side. And if you want to hear your name in that group, you can head on over to our Patreon page, or if you just want your name on the graphic and you want to see it on the screen with the scrolling banner, always graciously prepared by our friend Sparrow, that graphic is, you can use the super chat function during the premiere, or the super thanks function if you're watching after the fact and leaving a comment on the show. But most importantly, just checking out the show is more than enough, as will always be. And heck, maybe tell a friend about the Rewind, share the show on social media and all that good stuff. But enough of all that, Desrin, shall we step out of the cave and into the light of Syros?
I love this analogy. Yeah, let's do it.
Right on. This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. Okay, so where to even begin, man? This newsletter, holy moly, was jam-packed with information.
Just insane.
Yeah, which of course, it makes sense. It's the first one at the end of the month, which is part of VR's new content release sequencing. Because it was such a substantial newsletter, we're actually going to break it in half. We're going to cover a lot of it today, and then we're going to talk about it again next week. So if there's something that you were really looking forward to hearing us talk about on today's show, don't worry, we'll likely get to it next week if we don't mention it today, so.
I think what it will probably look like is some, today we'll probably get into the main stuff, producer's letter, dig into a bit of the more broad stuff from that one year later feature, which is literally 3 or more features all in one. Then maybe next week we could dig into the more, the nitty gritty, the really exciting specifics, because dude, I've got over 5,500 words of notes right now.
Jeez. Okay.
It's insane. Nice. There's so much exciting stuff that I want to talk about. So yeah.
Yeah, you are verbosity is definitely your strength. You have no problem putting words on the page. That's for sure. So like you said, though, we're going to try and keep the show down to a tight hour today for, we could Reasons.
Yeah, some
Reasons.
obligations, just,
Obligations. Things. Anyhow, let's get right into it and not waste any more time. So the newsletter came out on September 29th, and it leads with what we're alluding to here, basically. That is being the first pre-alpha test of 2022 is this weekend, October 1st and 2nd. It's for 6 hours each day from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time each day. Obviously, pre-alpha testers are excited, but VR noted in the newsletter something that is really cool, that even those that aren't testing are going to get, quote, a glimpse behind the curtain in the form of basically detailed patch notes and changes that the testing sessions will encompass. That's the way they said it. So, we got that for this one for sure. You can see it in the newsletter. And I found this statement pretty interesting. It sounds like what they want to do is, be more detailed with post pre-alpha session observations and updates for the greater community. And that hasn't really been explicitly done in the past. What did you make out of that statement?
Yeah, dude. I actually made a note about this like right off the bat as well. It's pretty much music to my ears because if they can keep this kind of thing up, I think it's just a huge win. It gives the community just a lot to talk about, for one. Probably more importantly, even it connects progress to something at least a little bit more tangible. I think it gives the project a little bit more validity, I guess, because other in development projects that have active testing, they tend to post patch notes or some kind of update in this fashion, and I think that's really a big win for anyone following to understand that it's not just words that's happening, in the updates. It's like real things.
Real progress. Yeah. I mean, giving people stuff to talk about is just always a good idea, and you might think it's a mundane detail, they might think it's a mundane detail, but we're interested. Like, we want to know these things. That's why we follow, and that's why we want to, it's how we want to spend our time. We want to stay busy doing these kinds of things. So I agree with you 100% on that. So if you see on the screen right now, I've got the October schedule that VR released. Of course, like I said, this was part of the newsletter. And I gotta say, I think this works really well in terms of including this in the newsletter. It sort of is like looking back at what happened this month and then looking forward to the next month. I really feel like
it's already great so addition. It's already so good. I love it.
Yeah. So one thing you might not have noticed, though, and I didn't at first glance, is that VR has moved all of their content release dates to Fridays instead of Thursdays. Yeah. So kind of an interesting thing there. Now, if you look at the calendar, you see the VIP only event is on Friday, October 7th, and they're calling it apparently "Bring Out Your Devs."
Oh my gosh!
I think they mentioned this on like the dev stream. I think Minus was like saying to Ronik, like, I think we're confirming it. Bring out your devs, right? So yeah, definitely is called Bring Out Your Devs. It's going to feature a chat with their new character artist, Tara Kamara Solbrig, who we met on the last dev live stream about character models. That's exciting. The October dev live stream will be on Friday, October 14th. And the notes say we're going to see some of Wild's End progress. Can't wait to see that. And a spooky new location. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I'm any
guessing
guesses? Any
the oh my gosh,
the gate?
I know. I was just forgetting the swampy area. What?
Oh, the Mad Moor.
Mad Moor. Yeah. I don't know why that slipped my mind, but yeah, the Mad Moor.
Okay, so you say the Mad Moor.
I say
it's going to be the gate. And we'll see who's right. We'll put a bookmark in it.
Watch
here.
It's like Mad Run or something.
Yeah, it'll be something completely different. So there's that. And then the next Parting the Veil is on Friday, October 21st. And this says Minus and Joppa are going to talk about exploration with unique items and abilities. And then lastly, the October newsletter drops on Friday, October 28th. So there is a ton to look forward to in October. And I really like that screenshot they put on the calendar as well. Those skeletons are looking pretty awesome.
Very glowy.
Very, very glowy, yes. I like glowy things. Although we did play Guild Wars 2 last night, and I don't really like glowy things in that game, but that's another story. I digress. Personally, I think the updated look at Wild's End is what I'm looking forward to the most on this calendar. Is there anything that you're really interested in here?
Yeah, I think it'll be really cool to go back to Wild's End and just kind of start seeing some more work there. Because I know they kind of change course a bit to work on Thronefast, for the upcoming testing sessions, which, totally makes sense. But yeah, seeing some more work on Wild's End will be pretty neat, especially with the context of how we've seen Thronefast change. I'm really curious how the geography is going to look, I guess. So, yeah, I'm really excited just for the Wild's End stuff. But, I'm sure there'll be other great nuggets in there too.
For sure. Yeah, no, definitely. There was something I wanted to follow up on from last week's show that it came up over the course of the last week, because when we talked about parting the veil, we were sort of like, just clarifying what it was, and as it being a discussion about their vision, their high level ideas about what they want to do in a certain area. And Sakari from Disparate Worlds, our friends at Disparate Worlds, who you should definitely check out their channel on YouTube if you don't know about it. They do a great content, Pantheon and Ashes of Creation related. Anyway, he reached out to Joppa on Twitter, sent him a question. I'm going to read the question because it's exactly what we were asking. He said, "Hey Joppa, I have a question about parting the veil. Is the nature of this particular show to discuss current stances /thinking /ideation on Pantheon's design, but not necessarily what VR is working on right now? I think that will help some clarity about its purpose." So Joppa replied and got a really good clarification. Joppa said, yeah, that's correct. The things you see on the Road to Alpha list each month are the things that we are working on right now. Our goal with parting the veil is to present the details of planned systems overall, some of which we won't be implementing until later. We'll emphasize that point next time. So just a good clarification there from Joppa. And so you can apply that to the mounting and taming systems they discussed. And then, of course, to the upcoming discussion in October about exploration with unique items and abilities, right? So nice to get a little a soundbite there from Joppa on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's kind of what we were assuming, right?
Yeah.
But, maybe for folks that don't follow as closely, I think it'll be a really good idea to just make sure it's abundantly clear, like on the show, right? So you don't have to rely on them watching something else or seeing Twitter or something and then getting the wrong impression. Right. So, yeah. Really good.
Yeah, good one. All right. So yeah, Joppa referenced the roadmap to alpha, that's stuff that they're working on right now. And that's always part of the monthly newsletter. So let's dig into that and let's highlight the things that are different from last month. So the first one is classes in combat. Under the heading classes in combat, they said, quote, implemented improved tooling to enhance loot table definition and allow NPCs to dynamically roll and equip a weapon out of their potential loot table, I should say. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, so that's pretty cool. I always, and there's another line later on in the newsletter that sort of says the same thing, but that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Right?
I was just going to shout that out because it was clarified a bit more, I think, later on, where it's basically saying, generally speaking, you can expect, if you see a mob carrying a weapon, it's fairly likely that is what drops, which I think that's just a feature that a lot of folks have always really been looking forward to. So I'm pretty happy to see them just, add tools for that.
I've seen so many comments that people really like that. They want to be able to see the treasure that they're about to acquire on the mob, right? So you see like they got that staff you want in their hands, or they're wearing, this is speaking specifically, to weapons. It says here, it doesn't say armor.
It does specifically say weapons. But what's really cool about this is that it's not just a visual thing. This is. And I know I can't dig in super deep already, right? But I'm super tempted. But the major theme here is that this is actually stuff that the mobs are equipping, more or less. This influences what they do, and that's a pervasive theme that we'll see elsewhere. With they're not just building a generic mob; they're basically just building a loadout and letting the mob do it. So,
and we know that mobs have class skills. They've said that before.
Oh, and they dig into that a lot later too.
Yeah, I wonder if mobs can use weapon techniques.
Yes, I don't know if that's in the notes. Good. They gave them techniques. They gave them readiness. So right.
It's
all there.
Now we're talking, man. This is getting good. This is getting really good. So that's exciting. Let's the next point that was on the updated roadmap was about the network overhaul. This is just a confirmation saying they quote resolved network instability issues that were reported in the August newsletter. Period.
Yep.
Awesome. Love it, right?
Dude, it's so good that I know this is obvious for a lot of people, right? But
yeah, you got to say it.
It's very good that they put this in here, just because, you can't just rely on people finding the information elsewhere. For all they know, the last a person heard about this was when they last announced they're having issues. And so it's important for them to say, hey, we announced the issues. Now we're announcing we solved them. That's kind of how it works, So yeah, it's good. Good stuff.
Whenever I see like a comment, whether it's on Reddit or somewhere on Twitter, and I try to respond to it, 99% of the time I'm referencing the roadmap to alpha. I'm like, do you want to know what's going on with this? Go check the roadmap.
It's literally there.
It's literally there. There's no reason not to just look at it and just the answer to your question.
Would you just look at it? I'm sorry.
Just look at it, man.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's there. It's a reference. It's a resource. Use it. So moving on, the climbing improvements was something that's listed on the updated listing on the roadmap, and they said, "quote added an exhaustion mechanic to prevent climbing and sprinting when endurance is fully drained." So this is should be familiar to anybody who's played Breath of the Wild. It's a similar thing when you overexert yourself when your endurance. It's very brief. There's a period where you're just sort of like, kind of useless for about 10 seconds, maybe less even in Breath of the Wild. I don't know what they're, how it's going to work in Pantheon in terms of the timing and how badly you're going to be depleted. But it's interesting because this is a new mechanic that they're now speaking to.
Yeah, it just makes sense though. Like it just adds a tiny little layer just to say, hey, you can't be careless. That's all.
Yes, you can't be careless. Yep. Under zones, they talked about having completed concept art refinement phase for Seville Manor. Seville Manor.
I heard about that in a while.
That's
at least
that's some lore. That's some lore info that we haven't had. I mean, we know who Wolfison Seville is, or Wolfison. I can't remember if the F comes first. Anyway, related to Blackrose Keep. Definitely worthy of some lore diving. Benonai knows it really well and has talked about it quite a bit in some of his fan fiction. So interesting to hear that. They said they completed 7 new human dwellings. They completed, this is something you were saying earlier, completed Wild's End, Well Pond, the points of interest geological kit. So I think that's sort of what you were hinting at, looking to see. And then related to that, of course, currently modeling additional cliff/overhang styles for Wild's End inlets. So really getting, detailed on the geography, sculpting it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The player models. So a couple updates even just from the dev stream, 2 weeks ago, we got in this newsletter, which is cool. They said the human male and female models have already completed the process, and we're now fully entrenched in the Darkmer with more to follow. So even since the 2 weeks ago when Tara and Duarte talked about where they're at with that process, that's done now. They're moved on to starting the Darkmer. The newsletter said they, quote, completed high resolution sculpt of the new Darkmer female model and initiated work on low poly Darkmer female model and Darkmer male high res sculpt. So definitely digging into the Darkmer. That's awesome.
And then Archai.
And then the Arca. Yes, that's up next. That's going to be interesting, right? Like it just.
Oh yes, it is.
So many it's just comparison to that old stream where they revealed the previous models and see how they compare to the new ones. It's gonna be super cool. Speaking of models, how about this? We got a new spider model completed.
Dude, I know this is such a silly, it's almost a footnote, honestly.
It is kind of,
but the fact is, they are getting some more creatures, which I think is just an overall exciting thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you want to see a good example of the old spider model, go to the video on our channel where we played through Fortress Devair, because we fought a spider in the sort of under the bridge in some of the lower areas of Devair there. Trying to remember her name. Broodmother, I think was her name. That's one of the spiders we've encountered, probably the biggest spider we've encountered on stream. So that was a good example of that, the old one. And then lastly, with regard to animations from the roadmap, there was a couple updates. They said they completed remediation of old animations for new player rigs, completed a new climbing animation suite. And I want to pause on this one here because this one's really important to my mind. I watched a video a little while ago that was breaking down, again, Breath of the Wild, the climbing in that game. And it was very detailed about how intricate it has to be. Those climbing animations have to be to account for all the angles, all the, different positions the character can be in. I should actually link it. I'll try and remember to link it in the show notes so everybody can see what I'm talking about here, because it was an animator basically breaking down how they did it. And I think that it's very relevant for Pantheon.
It is crazy in-depth and crazy complicated to do such a dynamic amount of animations for something like this, and setting up what's called a controller to make it all work well together is insane. And I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And then they said they completed face and body rigging for human male and female rigs to support character customization features. Again, we saw that in the dev live stream. And then lastly, initiated work on rigging for human female armor and darkmer female. So very cool. Lots of intriguing stuff there. Which of those does maybe speaks to you the most, or something you're looking forward to the most?
Well, he said intrigues, and I think that has a bit of a different meaning than just like a favorite,
That's true. Yep, it does.
But you know what I find intriguing? I find it intriguing that they are working on the well pond, even though I'd expect that underwater gameplay is a ways off. So I think that is interesting. I think that is intriguing that they are doing that.
Intriguing indeed. Absolutely. So that's good. Yeah. So that's the updates to the roadmap to alpha, or, the ones that we highlighted and the ones that have changed since last month. Again, like we said earlier, the featured article in this newsletter was titled Pantheon 1 year later. Basically, VR is saying here is, what's been done since the last PA test. So as you might think, it's humongous, and there's way too much to talk about. But we did, we said we're going to break it into half and half. We're going to spend a little bit of time, but we'll get to more stuff next week. The first thing that I want to mention is, I'll go through a few of mine. Des, you can give yours. Just in a high level overview, it was all about basically the HDRP upgrade, vinyl implementation, and combat system enhancements. But there were some that they haven't really talked about previously. So I tried to find those things. The first one for me, innate passives. This was interesting. Here's the quote. It's a bit of a longer quote, but I'm going to read it. It says, a new ability category has been added by which players of a given class may receive traits that are permanently active without needing to be assigned to the limited action set. At the moment, innate passives must be acquired from vendors available at no cost, but their effects will apply just by being learned in the spellbook. Support for auto-granting of innate passives is planned for a later date. So really, really pretty cool stuff. I mean, class innate passives. And if you go back a long time, one of their first video updates was about racial passives. So I'm kind of using that template.
Yeah, I still remember a lot of the creator videos on that. Like people were starting to get really into the passives. Wow.
I just remember it because it was because there was a lot of they put a lot of production value into their presentation. Had Joppa with a green screen and nice little background. But anyway, it was very thematic. So interesting that they're adding this whole, because we haven't seen racial actives, which are a thing. That was something that they talked about. We'd never seen those. So sort of moving into a class.
Right. These are specifically for classes, to be clear.
Yes.
These are not racial anything. These are class things. At least that's what the notes say.
Yeah. So if you kind of think about the racial passives, some of them, for example, like the Scar have an advantage against a certain disposition. I don't remember them all specifically off the top of my head, but you'll think about that maybe, the Cleric has an innate, ability against undead, which makes perfect sense. So stuff like that. But I could go for a whole, dev stream, some sort of special content specifically going over these. I think that would go over really well. And then next thing that I wanted to point out was talking about how endurance has evolved over the past year. It's pretty interesting what they say. Like I said earlier, they've added this exhausted state, but they've really taken endurance and said, basically it says it's now exclusively a resource for sprinting, climbing, and jumping, and but also maybe applied to future movement related functions. So they've completely taken it out of the combat realm, right? Endurance has nothing to do with your combat stuff anymore. And it's interesting to see because, it was connected. There was certainly some examples I think you've seen in past streams of play times when endurance was being used in some other capacity.
Yeah, totally. I mean, all the melee classes, basically.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't want to be mean, but I feel like I need to say this.
It's not mean. You can be critical. You're okay to be critical.
So I know they don't really have a lot of staff to throw at the website, but for the love of all the deities of Terminus and its residents, they really need to update this stuff. At least the racing class pages, because I feel they're just starting to get just unbearably out of date. And changing endurance, for example, like how many, class pages have endurance listed as their like primary resource or whatever?
I think they all do.
Yeah. It just needs a bit of a touch up for sure.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, they've always sort of lagged on a little bit is just updating the web page. But it does eventually happen. It just takes time.
The resource, though, I'm fine with. They also just may as well mention they split it out into its own UI element as well. So there's a separate kind of endurance bar that which I do like. They made it contextual as well, so that it only shows up when you're depleting it or regenning it. So it's not like gonna clutter or anything. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like I just feel like they're really good at like seeing other examples of it and using like if something else works, if you see an example of something that works, just
use it.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If it makes sense, do it, right? So I feel like that's what's happening with endurance here. And then the last thing for me is pointing out the lore drops. There were some stealth lore drops here, and if you look at the quests section of the consolidated notes, you're going to find these names all over the place. I mean, so I mentioned Seville Manor earlier. Yeah. I'm going to give you a couple quotes. This one I love. It says, explorers have reported the necrolescent crystals may once again be found among the ruins near Avelia. What the heck is a necrolescent crystal?
I think it probably has something to do with why those skeletons are so dang glowy.
Wow, yeah, you nailed it. Oh boy, that's
quest solved. Give me my reward.
quest solved. You got it. Des gets the quest reward. Yep, leveling up. That's awesome. Listen to this one. Quote, Woosus the owl has returned from his travels. He has found a new place with a great view where he contemplates important matters. Woosus the owl. I
mean, you got to say it like Woosus.
Woosus. Oh man, I can't say it like that because I'm gonna date myself here, but the old Sierra game, King's Quest V, has an owl character in it named Cedric, and he is notoriously pathetic. And that's what he sounds like. So whenever I say that, it reminds me of that game. So I'm just gonna call him Woosus. I'm gonna say it like that from now on. And then the last one, this is a good one. Quote, after a recent meeting at an undisclosed location, Master Ansel denies any knowledge of cursed blades and refuses to speak any further on the matter at this time.
Well, if he denies it, right off the bat, there's obviously nothing going on there.
No, listen up, Master Ansel. You got some explaining to do.
Not fooling anyone.
I'm far more perceptive than you think I am, Master Ansel. So give it up. So I could go on and on. I mean, I could do these all day, but it definitely cries out for a lore video because, connect this stuff back to other stuff. So definitely stay tuned. Now, it was hard to just pick out my the three things that were my takeaways, but what are your takeaways here?
I think, well, I'll save the rest for next week, maybe.
Sure.
Because I'm definitely going to want to go through these in a little bit more detail, but I'm a huge owl fan. So I'm probably going to try to seek out Woosus. For sure. But
I love that you're sticking with it. You're not giving up. You're like, I don't care if Therek's doing it. I'm doing it.
even if I can't keep a straight face. But yeah, dude, it's so fun. Even at this point, they are kind of peppering this stuff in already. Like it makes me kind of think of when they talk about Halnir's Cave, how they constantly they're saying they watch testers just go and walk past things constantly and never find it. And so they've already got their mind set on having this world full of mystery. So I'm going to use the E word, man. It's just exciting to see them already putting in this kind of exploration mystery, already. Very cool.
Totally. It's funny because you see these notes and like, I mean, PA testers, you probably never even saw half of this stuff. Like, it's just crazy how like they say, oh, this stuff has been in the world. And we're like, what? I never saw that, like, anyway, you have to be a little limited in what we say, but I mean, again, a lot of it was news to me. So super cool. So like you said, we'll leave your takeaways for next week and give you some time to really develop those. I'm looking forward to hearing them. All this to say, and I didn't even mention that VR posted that they're hiring a technical artist and a community manager.
Oh,
right? The company is growing. The game's getting close. We're on the road to alpha. We're getting these massive info dumps from VR. Future's looking pretty damn good. Don't you agree?
I mean, Therek, think of the children, man. Our language on this show. We're not going to be able to get our G rating.
Pretty damn good. I'm going to say it again. I'm doubling down on the damn.
But yeah, this newsletter was insane, dude. I mean, like I can't emphasize enough. I really love this kind of post-mortem style post. That some game studios are starting to do this, and that's kind of what this feels like for me. It's this culmination of a year of work, and they get to just drop it like all at once, really. And like one could argue that maybe some of this could have been dropped along the way, and a lot of it was. A lot of it's already known, but yeah, it makes me super like hopeful that they start doing this, maybe an end of year recap, or post-mortem, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And just do that every year. It's something that I think a lot of people can just point to and say, like, look, like Pantheon is making serious progress, and you can just see it all in this chunk here. Even if you don't follow all the time, you can look at the patch notes and be like, oh yeah, damn. They're doing stuff.
It's got to feel pretty good for them, right? Like it's for them just to even release this and be like, here's everything. Here's we're being as transparent as we can. You make of this what you will, right? It just feels good to sort of get that reset a little bit, so that they can sort of like focus on the future and look forward. And I think for me personally as a fan, I like that reset time. I think that's good for the mental health and the perspective to keep moving forward. Because if you're always like, wondering, did this happen? Did this happen? Did this happen? You can't pay attention to new information because you're just stuck on that old information. So yeah, I think it's just healthy to do this kind of big reset once in a while, right?
Absolutely. And one thing that I can't remember if we mentioned is just they did start out with like maybe one line saying that like, hey, we kind of wanted to explain like why we couldn't do PA sessions, like we had these things. And while we kind of like know, right? This is different because it's saying, hey, here's why, and here's this massive list of all the other things that we did like while we were doing the conversion. So it's not like this was really on hold. Obviously some stuff had to get pushed back because of the conversion and the vinyl upgrade and all that. But in the end, it doesn't mean the game wasn't getting built during that time. That's very, very clear now.
Yep. And that's what we were saying, but we couldn't prove it, right? Like we had no evidence of that. Now we have evidence of it. So again, it like you said earlier, gives them validity, brings them legitimacy.
All right, we're starting to get to like Nathan Napalm levels of hype. Maybe we should save the rest for next week. Where we have some very specific things to point out next week that are going to have some implications. I'll say that much. So I can't wait for next week.
It's a good place to leave it. So we'll leave it there. All right. So look at the notes for us here at Pantheon Plus this week. Our calendar for the week between October 3rd and October 9th. Of course, streaming on Monday is our friend CryptFox. He's playing some Guild Wars 2 on his channel, 7 p.m. Eastern on his Twitch channel. And Draq and his buddies, the EQ crew, are actually been playing Vanguard on the emulator lately. So Desrin, your influence is spreading.
I'm so ashamed because I've only been able to stop by for like a short time. I'm really curious to see how they're doing with it. Because last I saw they were still on the island, and I'm like, man, you guys need to get in some group and stuff, and hopefully they've gotten that far. But yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome they're doing that.
Yeah, I know. I hope they progress into that, because it's just, I don't know how many of them played Vanguard when it was live, but love to see them getting into that. So if you haven't checked out the midnight stream on Monday night, it's midnight Eastern on our Pantheon Plus Twitch channel. That's Draq and his crew. And then on Tuesday, we're back again for MMOs 101 playing Fractured. We're having a great time with that game, running around. We summit a boss this week. We're building out the Pantheon Plus village and just having a super good time with that game. Lots of people involved, and just lots of good times, lots of laughs. On Thursday, speaking of laughs, we had a great time this week. We played some Guild Wars 2. Me, you, Des, and Essen played some Guild Wars. We did some boss hunts,
very
which
epic.
is up on our... It was very epic, and I just actually opened my... I loaded up Guild Wars 2 today and went through all my loot. It took me about an hour and a half to open all the chests that I got. And then the chests within the chests and the boxes within the chests and the bags within the boxes. It is 100% chestception, that game, and it drives me absolutely batty, but... whatever. It's better than no loot, I guess. So that's 7 o'clock Eastern on our Pantheon Plus channel. We stream live. That'll be coming up on Thursday. On Friday, our friend RedbeardFlynn, I love this title for his video, MMOVember. So
Dude.
he's I told him in chat, I was like, you got to do like Movember, where you grow a mustache, in support of cancer research and all that stuff. I'm like, if you grow the mustache, I will be so, supportive. Maybe I'll even do it in with him.
We've got to make this
trim
a
the
thing.
goatee.
We've got to make this like a...
All right, we're doing it right now. Right now here.
Throughout the industry.
This is the moment.
MMOVember.
Putting out the call. MMOVember. If you have a beard or a mustache, grow your mustache in support of prostate cancer. Awareness, that's the whole thing. And let's make this a thing. So it's awesome. That's on RedbeardFlynn's YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out. And that's it for the calendar. I just want to also mention that Draq was doing a community fan trailer video that should be up by the time you're hearing this, as well as something else that should be up is Couple Conversations Part 2 on our YouTube channel. That's with Sarah Avienda and her husband Essen, talking about character realism and the models and that kind of stuff. So check that out. And that's it for this week's VR News and Notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, first off, I'm excited I'm going to keep using that today. Oh no. What's happened to me?
Excited. It's inevitable.
It's an exciting time. I've got to shout out a little contest being run by one of our community storytellers and theory crafters, Benonai. If you hadn't heard about this already, he's putting together a contest to make the best Pantheon trailer that you can. That is where, Draq's trailer's going. Therek already has one. And so, yeah, he's got a bunch of submissions, including other folks like 187 from the community, Sir Medieval, probably others at this point. So get some together and post it on the forum thread. And this one's titled Content Creators Assemble. Make trailers for a prize. And naturally, I'll have that linked below. But, super fun. Some of the trailers already have been just awesome, and it's already so cool.
The one from 187 is amazing. It's quite a bit older. He did it a long time ago, but it's incredible what he put together for that one, and everybody's done a great job. So yeah, definitely, it's just fun, man. If you have any ability to make do video editing in some capacity, or even be creative and come up with something else, do it in a different way. It's good times.
Yep. Also in the community, we've got community member Galarain, who did a few interviews. And this is all going to be posted on her, I believe, is it a guild website? I don't want to misspeak. But yeah, it's called The Old Code.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure it's just theoldcode.com. While you're talking, I'm going to double check that because I do have it bookmarked.
Well, either way, I have it all linked. Each interview I have linked in the show notes, of course. But so far, they've got Therek and Draq. They've got RedbeardFlynn. They've got Bazgrim. Might get one from me up there as well. but yeah, this a cool like random like community member / content creator interview all up on that website, which is kind of becoming a little bit of a collection of things. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it's theoldcode.org, not com.
There we go. Yeah.
So,
yep.
.org. Yeah.
But outside of that, we've got some video content. Naturally, I shouldn't even say some. We've got a lot of video content. And right off the bat, it makes me very glad to say that our beautiful Brit, RhysInRevelry, put together another narrative recap video covering the previous dev stream. As well as giving some of his own thoughts. And I know we've had like a lot of dev stream videos already, but he's he's got a great way of scripting and narrating and editing it all together. So I still got to recommend this.
Yeah, I watch every time he puts one up. I watch it right away. It's just getting better and better, and it's becoming much more like he's been doing it a long time. You feel like you don't feel that newness to his videos anymore. You feel like he's becoming very polished with it. So
yeah, so we got to lift this guy up because he does good things. And naturally, we've got another Sir Medieval video, and this time is coverage of the Parting the Veil live, and it's called I got to do the thing. The Mount System Explained, Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen MMORPG, Taming, Character Models and Rigging, Progression. And
well done. Nice.
Hopefully I didn't just blow up my mic there. Yeah, it's his usual, pretty solid coverage of the stream, a bunch of his own thoughts as well. Also, dude, man, I maybe this is just like content creator thing, but I can't help but look at this. It's like some of his videos are just getting pretty stinking blown up, man. It makes me so happy to kind of just, every time I go and check, I look at his whole channel, just to make sure I don't miss any videos or something. And, dude, some of his videos are just actually getting some pretty significant numbers. I think his progression one is at like 32,000 views, which I don't think the official channel has a video with that many views in the last like 3 years.
That's incredible. Yeah. I didn't know it's gotten so big. That's amazing.
Yeah, and what's kind of crazy about this is that his Pantheon videos are his like most viewed videos right now. Like, and he's done some stuff on Wrath, Wrath of the Lich King. Small indie title.
Yeah, small, little game nobody's ever heard of it.
Dude, so yeah, that's just really encouraging, and I'm super glad that he's sticking to the Pantheon content. Seems really into it right now. Still looking forward to his lore video. It's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've got another TiersonBane video as well. And this one digs into the potentials of the perception system. And again, it's kind of hard to nail down a lot of the perception system stuff, but I do love when people get into it. And since TiersonBane's been doing a lot of Pantheon videos lately, it was just bound to happen. So that makes me happy, man.
I really liked how he talked about in that video, like he was sort of exploring the concept of, will people feel like they have to do it? And I think that's a really relevant conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that it always comes up whenever I do a video of a similar on the perception system, or wherever I'm having a conversation about the perception system. It's always like, will I have to do this to be, relevant? And he sort of like, he came to a little bit of a different conclusion than I come to, but I love, like listening to his reasoning for it. I thought it was very well put together and very well reasoned.
And that one's called MMO Exploring, now with a purpose. So be sure to check that out. Enjoy that when you can. And then let's get into our other buddy here, Mr. Nathan NAPALM. Also throwing up some new Pantheon videos. And this one's talking about the possibility of an old school MMORPG survival in the modern day, which is something that I am very passionate about. And
Yeah, me too.
I he brings up some stuff that I'm like, I want to extrapolate that. But it's a really cool bit about how, Pantheon could totally survive. And that's called a new old school MMORPG. Can it survive? So definitely check that out.
It's a very, very interesting discussion, and something that, it's just so relevant.
Very relevant. Still somehow polarizing, but
it's still somehow polarizing, right? I'm totally with you on that. I'm like, how is it we're so far apart on some of this? But anyway,
yep.
I'm getting off topic here. Sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah. And this next one. So I hate to admit this because I actually haven't found time to watch this yet. It makes me really sad because we were just talking about this topic last week, and this is from Disparate Worlds. They're actually, they're tackling a bunch of stuff. We were talking about including that complexity topic, but also, feature creep, mounting, taming, all that stuff. So, let me live vicariously through you. And so, go check that out. I'll probably listen to it by the time this goes up, but really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, it's really good. They did a nice mention of the rewind and talked about our discussion about it. So it was very cool to hear.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly fun to do this little back and forth thing, in a constructive manner.
Because we're friends with them,
exactly.
Right? Because we're like, we've spoken to them one-on-one. We know them, from gaming with them, from playing New World and all that kind of stuff. Like they're good folks.
Yeah. And I love the wordplay of this title. So this is episode 36, and it's called The Mounting Debate. Taming and travel in taming and travel in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. So go take a listen to that. Another great podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of speaking of, so my lovely friend RedbeardFlynn, who is totally not going to ditch me for the next Plus You episode, just did a video talking about feature creep in Pantheon. And I guess it's a pretty big topic right now. Disparate Worlds talked about it. Redbeard. I know there was another video that came out about it. But yeah, this one's come from that last Parting the Veil, of course. And it's called Feature Creep in Pantheon, or Feature Complete. So funny thing about this, not funny, really sad. This poor guy,
sad.
He lost the whole video and had to redo it. That's the stuff of my nightmares, man.
It is. I watched. So I'm sitting on the couch in the morning having my coffee. I'm like, oh, Redbeard put up a video. I'm like, cool. Click on it. I'm like watching it. I'm like a minute or whatever it was, minute and a half into it, and then it just stopped. I'm like, what? Like, check. I thought my internet was like buffering or something. I'm like, what's going on here? What? And like, oh, that's the entire thing. I'm like, oh, he had one of those situations where he didn't render properly. He didn't upload properly. Something happened. Like, poor guy. That sucks.
Yeah, but he redid the whole thing, and he's got it up on his channel now. It's wonderful, as you can expect. So that one, and last but not least, Sparrow did a nice quick video covering the upcoming events in October, including the notorious skeleton laugh. So
yeah, it's in there. It's in there. I commented on it.
Yeah, these are super great, just for folks that just want a quick video that says, hey, here's what's coming. Wonderful. But that's actually quite a week for Pantheon content, right? Like, really good.
It's quite a week.
And I'm sure, we're going to see a ton of stuff coming up in the next few weeks as well. Just with the massive newsletter. So stay tuned. It sounds like next week is going to be pretty insane for the rewind. So can't wait to see you guys again. But I think that's going to be it for this week's Community Spotlight.
Sit back and relax. It's time for The Lore You Know. All right, so we're going to continue the tale of the seed and the worm this week. In several gameplay streams, the Spriggan have been shown, and they've been like conversed with. And in doing so, we've learned some details about them. Like names like Nehu and Varen, they've been shown on stream or on VR's videos. And we heard from Nehu about their role in like continuing the Spriggan line. She's talked about it in the text that we've seen. So in this week's telling, we learn from the official lore about their social structure. You know, we ask, do they follow a familiar hierarchy, or is it something more akin to like the orders of nature, being, you know, beings of nature? Find out as we delve into the kings and queens of the Spriggan in this week's Lore You Know.
Spriggan obey a familial hierarchy. Each grove is overseen by a king, called an Oa, who pledges to carry out the mandate of the face in the deep. Every grove must have a queen as well, known as an Ua, who oversees the cultivation of new Spriggan. Without her role, the grove will perish, as the delicate threading of a Spriggan spirit only her magic can perform. An Ua's voice is said to be that of nature itself, at once a bird and a wind, a brook and a storm. Her beauty as well is seen in the raiment of her hair gown, a living tapestry of ivy, flowers, and birds of every sort. Her headdress may hold active nests, or a living bouquet of flowers, the likes of which few on Terminus have ever glimpsed. Spriggan Oa may live 1,000 years and reign for half of that time or more, and their role is rarely subservient or dominant of the Oa, unless the difference in age is of extreme significance. Most often, their positions exist as one unit, working in tandem to preserve the grove above all else. Spriggan hierarchy are responsible for stewarding and cultivating generations of Spriggan, a process that begins by harvesting a splinter of the verdant shard, which is wrapped in a soft flame known as verdant fire. This crystal will become the Spriggan heart, growing with the creature itself and blooming into the living flame that shines from within their eyes until the time of their passing. The Spriggan body is formed from a piece of the king and queen themselves, woven around the crystal fragment and planted in the folds of the Ua's living garment for a time. There are rare occasions in which a Spriggan turns from the path of stewardship and chooses to forsake the grove in favor of a subversive strength, some choosing to challenge the Oa himself. Here it is the Oa's choice as to whether the violating Spriggan is banished from the grove or may attempt to rejoin their people over time.
And that is the Lore You Know. Desrin, I can't believe it. You actually did it. Your little sound effect at the beginning, you magnificent druid, you opened a portal. We're now just about to head into Terminus. Well, depending on how long the show went, we might already be there, but I think we're good. I think we're good. So thank you, man. Thank you for working your magic. I really appreciate it.
You know, what was harder than opening the portal was being concise. So
man, I know how hard that is for you. You like, I feel like you literally could like bend time and space before you could like put yourself into a verbiage box, 100%, if you will.
Yeah. But hey, we did it. I hope everyone, enjoyed the show as we actually kept it on time for once. Don't worry, we'll totally fail that next week.
Yes, we will make up for our brevity next week, we promise. So, thanks everyone for hanging out with us again, as always. Without the Rewind crew and all of you, there is no Rewind, so you know how much you're appreciated. Maybe like I said at the beginning, tell your friends, definitely tell your enemies, consider sharing the show on your socials so we can grow the Pantheon community. But of course, like Des said, we'll be back next week with another episode. So until then, cheers.
See you in Terminus.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Therek at Pantheon Therek on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.